Hello and welcome to Euranet Plus Summit. We are the leading radio network for EU news. Our special guest today is the Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Henna Virkkunen. She is responsible for technological sovereignty, security and democracy. Welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Artjoms Konohovs and I am a journalist from Latvian Radio and your host today. I'm joined online by my colleagues from our radio network from various corners of Europe. Welcome to you as well. Since democracy is one of the subjects that you are responsible for, I'd like to start with the issue of Hungary. We know that democracy there is clearly deteriorating, and recently the Advocate General of the European Court of Justice has concluded that indeed Hungary is in breach of EU treaties due to the fact that they are limiting access to LGBTIQ content, and now the Budapest Pride has been banned. So what is it that the Commission is going to do, and perhaps are you personally or any other commissioner going to go to Budapest Pride to support this right of assembly?
The Commission has opened, because of this reason, infringement process against Hungary several years ago. And now we are expecting to have the final decision also from the European Court. But as we saw, the first information 2 weeks ago, it was supportive to Commission's approach here. And when it comes to these very fundamental rights, freedom of expression and also our human rights, of course, they are core values of the European Union and we are protecting them. We are currently also now finalizing our rule of law report, and we will also address these topics in our rule of law report.
But has the decision on attending Budapest Pride been taken already or not?
We have seen that police is now applying the law in Hungary, and we have understood that it's now under court review, also the decision by police.
Okay. Sticking to the subject of democracy, but perhaps from a slightly different angle, I would like to give now a word to my colleague from Belgian broadcaster RTBF. Anik, you have a word, please.
Thank you, Artjoms. Good afternoon, Mrs. Virkkunen. I'd like to bring up a recent report from the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, a report which is quite alarming. It shows that in 2024, so last year, disinformation affected elections in 80% of countries, and that includes EU member states like Slovakia, for example. The report also shows that foreign interference is becoming more and more sophisticated. We're talking about a mix of cyber attacks, hidden financial influence, manipulation online, and one key issue is that digital platforms are still not properly regulated. So my question is, doesn't that show that the tools that we have now in the EU are falling short or are too slow to keep up with these fast evolving threats?
I think that we have very robust rules in the European Union when it comes to digital services, because we have Digital Service Act, and now we are fully enforcing these rules, and it's very clearly said in our rules that online platforms, they have to all the time assess and mitigate the systematic risks they are posing, for example, to our civic discourse or electoral processes. And especially when it comes to elections, we have also prepared and published our guidelines about protection of electoral processes. But now, as you said, that there's so much disinformation spreading around the elections that most of the cases now, when there's elections coming in different member states, together with the National Digital Coordinator, Commission has been also having round tables with online platforms and really checking that they have all the practices in place and they are making sure that they are not manipulated or misused during the electoral processes. So this is a very important priority for us.
Anik, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, what is the next step? How can we go further? How can we deal more effectively with these hybrid threats? I'm thinking especially about some member states, smaller member states, newer member states, where democratic institution might be more exposed. What can we do to help these member states?
The online platforms, they are playing very important role here. And of course, it's important always that our national authorities, that they are very well up to date, and they are also coordinating very well with the researchers and with NGOs, also with the European Commission and platforms, to make sure that all the practices are in place and we know all the risks, because in different member states also the situation can be very different. So we see also, for example, now during the Romanian elections, 20 times more disinformation was flagged by the trusted flaggers now during the presidential elections than 1 year ago in the European elections in the whole European Union. So 20 times more in Romania. But in the same time in Portugal, they had also elections and there was nearly not reported that kind of disinformation. So it's also a very different situation in different countries. And that's why our national digital coordinators, they play a very important role here when they are collecting together the online platforms and also looking at the specific risks with them. But this is a certain area where we are now focusing very much. And also now when we are preparing our democracy shield, of course, the integrity of our electoral processes and really the disinformation and foreign interference part will be a crucial part of that also.
Staying on the subject of social media, I'd like to give a floor now to our colleague Katie from the media The Europeans. Katie, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. I have a related question about a specific potential intervention that the EU might make in this area. On last week's episode of our podcast, we spoke to an Irish digital rights campaigner called Johnny Ryan, who has argued that it is well within the EU's existing powers under GDPR and other existing legislation to force social media companies to switch off the kind of recommender algorithms seen on platforms like TikTok. These are algorithms that we have seen in places like Romania are very clearly geared towards bombarding our citizens with content that makes them fearful and angry and indeed open to political manipulation. Do you agree that it is within the EU's existing powers to switch these algorithms off? And would you also agree with the person we spoke to that it would be in Europe's interests to switch these algorithms off?
It's also one part of our Digital Service Act that we want to make sure that online platforms, they are transparent. And that's why they have to also inform the users also that why certain content is recommended for them. And the users, they have to also have possibility to change the recommender system. We know that nearly all of online platforms, they are not transparent enough in their actions. It was very clear also information in last year when the online platforms, they were first time carrying out independent audits, and the auditors, they were very much giving the feedback for the online platforms that they are not transparent enough. And that's why Commission has been continuing the dialogue with the online platforms, and we are also very clearly saying them what we are expecting from them, because it's very important that the users, they know why certain content is recommended for them, and they have to have also possibility to change the recommender system.
Training and education, of course, are key to raising digital awareness vis-a-vis disinformation, but it's easier said than done, of course. And here I'd like to bring our colleague Claudia from the IMS Media in Germany. Claudia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Artjoms. Madam Commissioner, what can Europe and the EU authorities do to raise awareness among people about manipulation, which we know is often orchestrated from outside of Europe? And in particular, I would like to know manipulation originating from AI. So what measures could be taken to prevent such manipulation?
This is also one of the major obligations under DSA, that the online platforms, that they have to all the time assess and mitigate the systematic risks. And of course now when they're using more and more AI, it also covers the AI content that they have to all the time look, that they have all the practices in the place that they are mitigating the risks. But especially I also want to underline the importance of our media literacy and digital skills and digital literacy. It's very important that we are also educating our citizens to digital world, that everybody is having also the tools to think and analyze critically critically also the content what they see. So I see that it's both sides are really much needed, that we have to have clear rules also. We have to fully enforce them and make sure that online platforms, they are taking their responsibilities here and making sure that they are not spreading disinformation or harmful content. But also at the same time, our citizens, they need also the tools. And we see that when we are looking at the digital skills, we are not there where we should be. So this is certainly an area in the coming months and years where we have to focus and also look the best examples, those member states who has been successful in this field. But because as a general level, we are lacking very much behind on digital skills.
I want to ask you a question about the age limit for social media that some of the politicians are now proposing. Emmanuel Macron is being one of them. What's your opinion? Would the Commission be ready to go forward with some sort of age limitation for social media use in Europe?
In our Digital Service Act, we have very clear obligation for online service providers that when minors are using those services, very high level of safety, privacy and security should be ensured for the minors. And we know that this is not the case now. That's why Commission has opened several investigations against the very large online platforms. But we are also now finalizing our guidelines for online platforms, where we are really showing for them that what kind of practices we are expecting from the online platforms to make it more safe and secure for our minors also to use these services. I understand also the discussion about the age limit, but in the same time, we have to also think that we have to educate also citizens for the digital world. So I think it's important also to learn to use digital tools, but I understand that in many families it's a major concern, especially about the screen time. It's not only the social media, it can be gaming or some other internet services that are very much taking attention of minors, and they are using too much time online. And I think these are the major concerns. So the screen time and then also the content, what is shown for the minors.
Yes, that definitely is a very major concern. Now, I would like to switch to Italy and our colleague Gigi, who has got the next question. Gigi, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Grazie, Artyom. Thank you, Ms. Virkkunen. Well, we already touched these issues. Europe has recently been the scene for fierce hybrid battles involving political interference. We talk about Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, and of course the big context of the Russian war in Ukraine. So, Ms. Virkkunen, my question is, to what extent and in what direction are these battles reviving the importance of Europe technological sovereignty, and on your specific mission within your European portfolio?
When we are speaking about technological sovereignty, it's important that we have our own capacity in all our critical sectors, that we are not dependent on one company or one third country when it comes to very critical services. And we have specified that especially AI and quantum technology and semiconductors, these are three very critical technologies to where we have to invest ourselves to make sure that we have also capabilities ourselves here. But in the same time, it doesn't mean that we are like closing our borders, that we are not cooperating with others. We see that it's important part of competitiveness that we are also working very closely with a like-minded partner when it comes to technologies and digital. But in the same time, important also to have our own capacity, that we are not dependent.
Thank you. Now let's move to the question from our colleague from Lithuania, Aušra, and she's been wondering about the idea whether the international digital agenda, the recent strategy that you have posted, whether it's not, let's say, a little too late and too little. Colleague Aušra, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Artjoms, and thank you, Madam Commissioner, for your time. So my question is, isn't it time to admit that the EU is falling behind in the AI race? Because while the United States and China are leading the way, the EU is merely contemplating regulations that are already overdue. So does it even matter to have European rules when all the major AI players are based elsewhere?
In the European Union, we want to make sure that also when we speak about digital environment, that we have safe and fair and democratic environment, also when it comes to technologies and also to AI, so that our citizens can trust also the technology, because we know that AI will change many things in our society and industry and working places in the coming years. So it's important that people can trust to this technology. For example, when AI is used in the hospital, it's important that our citizens know that it's meeting certain standards and it has been tested before it's applying on the markets. But at the same time, I don't see that this is like contradictory, that we have rules and we are also boosting investments and innovations in this area. And especially, we have also many strengths in the European Union when it comes to AI. So we have the biggest amount of researchers on AI in the European Union. And also we have about 6,000 startups who are working to deploy AI. But the main obstacle for them has been that they haven't had computing capacity to train their AI systems. And that's why we are now investing to AI factories together with our member states to make sure that our startups and researchers, they have access to computing capacity, then they can also develop AI in the European Union.
Finally, but do we have the money? Because those 200 billion that were announced by the president in February in Paris, a lot of people say that it's an old money, and it's a bit of a bluff. Do we actually have the money to invest to stay in this race?
When it comes to public funding, European Union is often very good at that, but we are not so good in private funding, and that's why we want to now combine private funding together with public funding. We have currently call for interest open when it comes to these gigafactories, and we are very happy to see that there is a lot of industries and stakeholders who are interested to invest together with us to gigafactories. So I think in the end of June we will have more information also about what kind of consortiums there could be, but especially we want to encourage private investments when it comes to technologies.
Thank you very much, Executive Vice President. Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you for watching. That's all we got time for, and see you next time.